Me being let go, like I was fired unceremoniously. It called on a Saturday by my force supervisor. I was sobbing on the phone. I had the worst panic attack. We thought I had to go to the hospital because I was so devastated. And people were like, if you did a good job, you wouldn't be fired. And I'm like, I did the best job. I was the rock star of the forest, if not the zone, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm happy to show you my evals, the awards I've got.
You.
Yeah, I am not one to toot my own horn. I'm someone that brings everyone else up as a servant leader. That's my job, to bring other people up.
Yeah.
But I kicked ass, and they didn't even care. They just fired me because I'm a Schedule A disability. I had 1 month left before I could start getting more protections, and they fired me for that.
Yeah.
And then they lied to a judge and said that they looked at metrics, and they did not. So.
Well, I hope you get your job back. We need you.
Hey everyone, welcome back to The Lookout. As you know, we cover wildfire, water resources, forestry, rural culture, and it's pretty hard to avoid politics. There's a political aspect to all these things. So we feel like we've got a needle that we got to thread here with politics. We know that our viewers are all across the political spectrum. That's something we like, is that we work on issues like fire and water that have a broad appeal, and so we try not to get too political on here. But we're doing a story today. This is an interview with a friend of mine, Tanya Torst, who I've known for a long time, who's been laid off by the Forest Service as part of the big reductions in force. And this is her story. I've been working as a contractor for the feds for about 20 years. In college, I worked on a Forest Service crew. And so I know, firsthand that there's a lot of room for improvement in how government functions. I don't think anyone would accuse the Forest Service of being a high-functioning organization, except during fire season. But in my opinion, the problem isn't the employees for the most part. My problems I've had with dealing with the Forest Service during my career as a contractor have been with the systems, the IT systems, the contracting systems, the environmental review process. There's a lot of kind of bureaucratic weight that makes it hard for them to get anything done when it comes to managing the forest. So I think there's a lot of opportunity to improve how the Forest Service functions. But in my opinion, getting rid of the dedicated and smart people that work there already, who know the terrain, that have dedicated their lives to managing natural resources, that's crazy. These aren't jobs, these aren't jobs that can be done by AI, a lot of them. People build connection to a landscape that they work in, and they build connections to the community that they serve. And that's, it's hard to replace. So right now, a lot of folks who've worked a long time for the Forest Service are being treated as kind of disposable, and people are bad-mouthing government employees and saying that, they're leeches and parasites and all this other stuff that I disagree with. So here's Tanya's story. We're turning off comments. We're going to turn off comments in general for a lot of our things that have more of a political aim, because we don't feel like anyone really gains from talking politics in a comment section. Hope you enjoy it. I appreciate Tanya coming and talking to us. And if you're a Fed that's been fired, know that there's a lot of folks that you've worked with that are unhappy about it. And we hope that everything comes out the other side. We hope that things improve. We hope that efficiencies are achieved, but we don't really like the way it's unfolding right now. So thanks for watching this.
Can you tell me a bit about when the Forest Service started to really rely heavily on partners?
This has been something in the past 4 or 5 years. I was part of a big hiring push, and I got hired in 2023 to bring partnership coordinators to help with the wildfire crisis landscapes. And those are big areas where a lot of money is going to stop the fire risk. Mm-hmm. And I know it's been since 2020 that this started. I'm not an expert on that, so we could look it up later. But
right. So So as the Forest Service has less capability,
Oh yeah.
overall, they're relying more on partners to get the work done.
We can't do it ourselves. We just don't have the bodies. And
And
people.
why is that? Why has the Forest Service lost so much capacity?
Oh, yeah, that's a good question. Part of it is because Congress does not give them enough money to hire and to even pay our people. Last year, because of the continuing resolution, last fiscal year 24, it was very. It was a big struggle. We had to stop any expenses. We couldn't do travel to do our work done. I'm not talking about fun travel. I'm talking about travel to get work done. We just couldn't pay our own bills. And with the continuing resolution of this year, we couldn't even buy toilet paper. I mean, it's ridiculous. And, we're talking about forest supervisors and everyone's like, well, looks like, office folks are going to be doing cleaning toilets, and that's okay. You know what? I think all of us are fine with doing that. We don't have an issue with that. I was on a call with one of the forests, and the question was, how do we keep track of everything when we have 4 to 5 different jobs to do? One person is doing the work of 4 to 5 people, or trying to. They're honestly, some of them are not getting paid overtime. No one's getting paid overtime. It's like, it's so hard to get anything done. And then I'm gonna just bring it up, NEPA is challenging. And I think a lot of, especially
So
a lot
you're
of,
talking about the National Environmental Policy Act.
yes, and I am not an expert. I can refer you to some, but one thing I do know is it takes a lot of work and a lot of time to get things done.
Right.
And that's something that I was hoping, and we were all hoping, that we could help streamline that.
Right. And the Mendocino's been working on like this programmatic EIR for the entire
Yes.
forest for like a decade?
Yeah, and we signed it last year.
So you've got all this environmental hurdles cleared, but now you're getting shut down right when it's time to actually do the work?
Yeah, and all that money, like I said before, I brought in 11.9 million just to Mendocino for area work on the upper tomes, and a lot of that is to protect Crane Mills timberland, which is a small industrial timberland, because they've stopped all work. We can't do anything, and that's like just in limbo. Everything's in limbo. So, yeah. Oh, not to mention, I have to share one more thing that's being stopped. And I am not the expert on this either, but there is a halt on all contracting, all purchasing. Like Shasta Trinity invested $2 million on reforestation in the Mount Shasta Ranger District. That's been stopped, and they have seedlings that they need to plant, and they're pretty much going to rot, because at this point there's no way, because of the stop, they can't go and get the contract work to put it in the ground. So that's major reforestation that's going to stop, and that's going to hurt future timber.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to put everything back 2 years.
So, I hear some people saying like, hey, this is just a temporary pause to figure out like where we're wasting money, everything else. What do you think is the strategy? Like, why do you think that all this is happening?
I do not know, and I should not speculate, but that's a big but. And I probably shouldn't say this, but it feels like they're trying to crush the whole system to rebuild it. I have a master's degree in organizational leadership. I also have an MBA. I graduated top of my class, and I study some systems. And it really looks like they're trying to break everything and build it the way they want to. Systems don't always work like that. I mean, they've done a good job of stopping the systems to protect employees like me, or they're trying to stop it, but usually systems bounce back. So I really, they're going at it the wrong way. As someone who used to work in consulting and used to be able to go in and show like the way to work around this problem and stop the bureaucracy, they're doing it all wrong. They're doing it with the purpose of, let's terrorize the Forest Service employees with these emails, pretty much saying, I'm paraphrasing, but get a real job, right? You're not worth anything. Tell me 5 things you did last week that so we can, decide whether or not to fire you. Oh, and if you're on vacation, if you're sick, you're going to get fired. That's kind of what these emails are sending out. They're all poorly written. They're like, I don't know what they're trying to terrorize us for whatever reason. But you can't take away all our tools, take away all our people, put laws in to make it so we can't do our work.
And hurt your partners.
And hurt our partners.
That you've spent all this time building the trust with.
Trout Unlimited, Mule Deer, Props, everyone is going to have to lay off people. Plus all the local timber folks in the North State.
Yeah.
Because they do our work. They do a good job too.
So if it was your job to kind of reform the Forest Service,
yes,
try to make them more productive.
Oh yeah.
Where would you start?
Ooh, okay. We need to streamline NEPA, which is National Environmental Protection Act. And I do get that is most likely what the new administration wants to do. But it just needs to be streamlined because there's so much work that goes into getting stuff done and
getting stuff planned, not actually done, right?
Yeah, well, it's the planning that does it, but we can't do anything until the planning is finished.
Right.
So we need to streamline that. That would be the top thing, I would think. That's been the biggest issue I've seen. And to be fair, like, the process is a good process in a lot of ways. I mean, we get people who are interested in protecting species. They're very involved with it, and they want to make sure different species are protected. I think this is not my idea, but I've heard, and I think it's a good idea, like, instead of focusing on protecting one species, we need to look at the whole ecosystem to protect it. Right. Because there's ways that we could do thinning and forestry and timber while still protecting. Right. It is not like, and the whole idea of, like, we just need to not touch anything is...
Well, we see how that's panned out.
We see how that's panned out, and it's an insult to every Native American tribe in this area.
So when you're saying that it's an insult to Native tribes to say that hands-off management is the way to go, you're saying that disregards thousands of years of Native American knowledge?
Exactly. Sorry, you just said that better than I did. I haven't been practicing that. I'm just like, I just get mad and think about it. Yeah, absolutely. And so we need to bring good management back. And the Forest Service has learned. They're doing all this, they've done all this research through the research stations. They know, they're learning what to do. They're learning from Native Americans and Indigenous people. I mean, we were working with tribes to put together, like, native seed banks and look at different ways to do things. So we're learning. And it seems like some environmentalists, not all, but some of them are still suing for as soon as to do anything. Like, we're seeing that quite a bit.
Well, it seems like some of the major, seems like some of the people that have been suing the Forest Service forever don't, they don't take traditional ecological knowledge seriously.
They don't, no. It's, I hate to say the R word, but if I think about it too much, it makes me wonder if it's, dismissing Native American.
Right. Well, I'll say it for you. Like, mainstream environmentalism has been super racist, right?
My gosh.
Since the very beginning, right?
Yeah.
John Muir was, like, total racist.
Yeah. We see the tribal crews get singled out by environmental groups. I've seen that. An environmentalist will call the police on a Native person doing work, saying, "Oh, they must be on drugs." They're not on drugs. They just worked 16 hours, right? They're exhausted, and people will, folks will get arrested. There's so much harassment of Indigenous folks in this area. I never would have believed it until, or because I didn't hear about it, but until I moved up here, I didn't realize how bad it is in Northern California and this area.
So tell me more about that. Like, what do you...
Oh, just, I mean, personally, as soon as I moved to Chico, you know, not being served, getting stink eye, everyone assuming I'm native. I am native, but not from here. You know, I see a lot of racism toward Native American folks, a lot of harassment. Yeah.
So, let's talk about DEI then, like, and
Yeah.
tribal engagement. Like, it seems like so much of what's happening right now is just like
Backlash.
full on white power, like white nationalism.
gosh.
And so,
Yeah.
what do you feel like this emphasis on DEI is just this extension of kind of like
Yeah.
white nationalism?
Oh, absolutely. And also, first off, people are confusing it with affirmative action. Affirmative action is when you bring people in to, you know, for a quota or something, and I'm not a DEI expert, but DEI in the Forest Service and in the government is not like that. The only preference DEI brings is to veterans and to folks with disability like me. So, and even with that preferential hiring I got, I still had to compete. And if I wasn't qualified, I wouldn't have got it. It just made it easier for them to hire me as opposed to somebody. It just put me on the same ground as someone who's already in the Forest Service. I still had to interview. I still had to prove what I did. I still have 3 degrees. It's not like I'm a pity hire or anything.
Right.
So, yeah, it just makes it easier. Also, what DEI does, at least in the Forest Service, it just opens things up. So we share jobs with people of color. And we open up the forests, you know, make sure that they're allowed to come in too, because a lot of times, you know, I've been working fires and I see, you know, white supremacists there, you know, hunting with weapons. It's a little scary. And I know they're white supremacists because I recognize their stickers, you know, on their hunting jeeps. And so, yeah, it's, DEI is a good thing. Diversity is always a good thing when you look at organizations. If you have everyone that looks exactly the same and thinks exactly the same, you're not going to get anything new. You need to have new blood, new opinions. You need to have good, different upbringings. I mean, one of the reasons I've been so successful in my job, because I've gotten several raises. I've gotten 5 different cash awards strictly for performance, plus I won the USDA Tribal Engagement Award. One of the reasons I got those is because I come from a diverse background, right? I come from a business background, which is so different from everyone else. So business, organizational leadership, I can use my tools that I got, my diversity to cut through the red tape to get these things done. And that's something that if you've been in the Forest Service your whole life, it's a little harder because you're in the system and you don't know how to make the changes.
All right. Is tribal engagement then being targeted as being some sort of DEI thing?
I suspect it is, because I was about to teach a class on working with tribes, and all the tribal stuff in the USDA got, ag learns most of it got taken away.
Okay, so they took
Yeah.
the stuff off their like class offerings online?
They took off a lot of stuff offline.
Related to engaging tribes?
Yeah.
So let's talk about, so I work a lot in the past I've worked a lot on the Klamath and on the Six Rivers and these places that like are unceded territory of the Karuk people.
Yes. Love them, by the way. They're doing a lot of good things.
Yeah,
They're
they
doing
are.
amazing things.
Yeah, and their programs are being shut down right now because they had funding from the Infrastructure Act. But talk about, you know, I think what strikes me when I talk to folks up there is like that they have a science system that we call traditional ecological knowledge that's based on like thousands of years of experimentation.
Yeah.
And so talk about how like TEK, traditional ecological knowledge, kind of what. Well, just talk about that. Like, I don't even know where to start with talking about tribal engagement.
So TEK, or ITEK, Indigenous Tribal Traditional Ecological Knowledge, I'm not an expert in it. Like, if you want to talk to an expert, Ali Metters Knight is a great expert. We have Tom Campbell. We have a lot of folks who are really good at that. I just pick up a little bit here and there, and I want it to grow because it's a way to help the forest, you know, with burnings and, or excuse me, not burnings, but prescribed fire and ways to have less impact to have a healthy forest. My job as a partnership coordinator is not actually with TEK, but I work with tribes. So I helped, for example, Redding Rancheria. I helped them put together a master stewardship agreement and a stewardship supplemental agreement to do work in their tribal area.
So they could work on national forest lands?
Yes, forest lands in their heritage area. I'm sorry, I cannot.
Aboriginal territory?
Yes, Aboriginal territory, yeah. First thing, tribes is not supposed to be DEI. Tribes are sovereign nations. And there is very specific Indian law, there's treaty law that applies to them. That being said, you know, a lot of the treaties that were put in place in the 1860s were never ratified and were torn up. But it doesn't matter, they're indigenous sovereign nations. So because of that, they're treated differently. So I can't just go talk to tribal council. We have to go through the line officers and it has to be nation to nation. It is not like me going, hey, what's up? Let's talk about this. I mean, I can talk to them casually, but we can't go and do that. So it's very specific. Now, what I did is there's something called the Nome Colt Walk, and that's a 100-mile walk. It's also known as the Concow Trail of Tears. And what happened is 470 Native Americans here in Chico were rounded up and forced march over 100 miles up over Mendocino National Forest into Covelo, and like 270 of them survived. That's it. Everyone else died and didn't make it. And every year, several different tribes come together and they walk that. And it's an amazing thing. It brings healing to everybody. And I was able to bring the forest into that. So last year, we had patrol teams with the firefighters help us direct traffic. And it was an incredibly healing experience for both the tribes and then the descendants of the settlers who drove the people off originally. So it's really an amazing thing. Because of that, I won the 2024 USDA Tribal Engagement Award with the forest. I helped drive this. So this was a big part of what I did, and I loved it. And we have nation to nation, and then we have people to people. And because not every tribal member is going to be on the council, so it's bringing local people and having them meet Forest Service. So Forest Service folks open their eyes to these people are still here, and these people have survived. The other thing that's going on, and maybe it's just paused, but they're taking back all the community wildfire defense grants.
Yeah, that affects the work I do. Like, we have 4 different projects right now that are funded by that, and 3 of them are frozen.
It is ridiculous. This is really hurting the local people, the people in rural areas. Right now, one of the partners of the forest was working to protect the town of Upper Lake. That's been stopped, right? That is a bad area if there's fire. You know better than me. Your work's been stopped. They're stopping Plumas. Every forest, they're stopping all this work.
Well, it's hard, I think, because like so much of this work is work that it should just be like locals going out with chainsaws and cutting firewood and It's like we've made it so complicated.
Yeah.
You know, like where you have to, you know, survey for rare beetles before you cut down a lodgepole or something. And it's hard to see, you know, I look at a lot of like the Fire Safe Council work and other work that gets done, and it's like, it's hard to imagine a more inefficient process than giving out grants and doing all this regulatory work. And it's hard to see how, unless we really radically reform the way that this work gets done, how it will ever be sustainable.
People, we have to have a balance, right? We don't want to be overly like regulated. We don't want it. And I gotta say, believe it or not, I'm a libertarian at heart. Like, I believe in free market, and I believe in, at the same time, I believe in mutual aid. I believe in us helping each other. And, you know, we need to create the systems where it works well, and we don't have that now. I can tell you, I am concerned about the new administration. I know they're using the Project 2025 playbook. I didn't know very much about it. I mean, I heard about it, but there's different trackers now that shows everything they do and what page in the playbook of 2025 it's related to, and it scared me. So when I looked up the Forest Service and that, they are looking at streamlining NEPA. I think that would be a really good thing.
Yeah, I feel like disruption is needed. It's just that these guys are doing it in a really sloppy way. Well, I think one of the problems too is just that these systems, as you know, are so complicated.
Yeah.
And especially like the timber industry, like no one's going to build a new sawmill based on like what Trump says today. Like people need like a 30-year guarantee of, you know, hey, the Forest Service is going to be stable for 30 years for us to cut logs on there before they're going to go build a mill. And so there's so many of these things move so much slower.
Yeah. And
they could privatize all the forests tomorrow. I mean, the timber industry isn't even asking them to do that.
No. And, you know, it's funny because we talk to the timber industry every year on the forest. They come and talk to us. And we talk to them, we listen to what they need, and we try to do everything we can to help them within our power. And I say that like we're not going to do anything illegal, like, you know, go against NEPA or laws. But, you know, they're our constituents. We want them to do well. We're in this together. So, you know, they say, well, we need more sales. We need to be able to go in and get more timber. And yes, that's true, but we'll go and put things for sale and they won't bid on it. And I get it, because they have other forces, they have market forces to worry about. But there's got to be a way that we can come together, that we don't destroy old growth forests, that we can keep the ecosystems, have a healthy forest, have them happy and us happy. It doesn't have to be one or the other. It's not a zero-sum game, right? We can both figure out a way to do this. So, yeah, that's my opinion.
Yeah. Well, yeah, screwing over the partners seems like, you know, it's just not good business.
It is not, and it breaks my heart, because I know these folks, they're good people. You know, and you know, and just so you know, I'm not partisan, but I know most of the people in this area, the people that are going to be affected tend to be more red-leaning. They're more conservative. They're more Republicans. Yeah. And they're the ones that are going to be hurt more than folks in the cities.
Yeah, I mean, I think I've been a contractor for the feds for over 20 years. It's like, we need to get paid. Like, people, they're letting go of people that sign our invoices when we're working on fires.
Yeah. And they're letting go of the people who are qualified to do things that, it's hard to get qualifications, right? So a lot of folks are being fired that are the only ones in the region that can do something.
Like a equipment time recorder or finance section chief.
Even like aviation folks. Like a lot of those I've been seeing getting fired, and you know, we all work together for this. No one works for the government for a paycheck. I'm going to tell you that right now. We all do it because we want to support our communities. We want to save our forests. Yeah.
Well, thanks for talking with me.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. It's good to see you again.
Yeah, you too.
Yeah.
But I wish you still did massage.